play hide and clap?
If you couldn't tell by the intro, the scariest thing about The Conjuring at this point is the ridiculous number of movies in the series. But anyway, if you're like me and you love horror movies, you've probably seen The Conjuring before, all 5 million of them. But a lot of people kind of use these as a gateway horror movie to get people into the genre. I mean, back in 2015, I basically watched the entire first movie for the first time, I think, waiting in line for a haunted house. I mean, it was almost impossible to avoid them. Everyone was talking about them, and they were scary, at least for a while. Recently, they've announced The Conjuring 4. It's called The Last Rites, and it's really The Conjuring 10 if you include all the spin-offs in the, I guess, Ed and Lorraine universe. But I don't think it's going to be scary. And if you're a diehard Conjuring fan furiously typing out a comment, just wait until the end of the video. I promise by the end of this, you'll believe me. But before we get started, go leave a comment and tell me what you think of this movie before I influence your opinion or anything, because, I don't know, I guess I just want to know what people think about this in general. Maybe I'm just a hater. But on to Chapter 1. So, last October, I decided to rewatch a few of the movies before The Nun 2 came out, and The Conjuring 2 is the first movie where the nun actually shows up. That's the villain we're going to be focusing on right now. And the movie's the scariest one in the series for me. I've always just found it, like, terrifying ever since I saw it in theaters, but the constant threat of the nun demon in the background with all the other scares and, like, ghosts or whatever works really well for me. And spoiler alert, but in the end, Lorraine Warren uses her psychic abilities to figure out the demon's name and sends it back to hell by, well, yelling at it. And a lot of people did not like this and thought it made a seemingly overwhelming threat super weak being defeated in this way. But these movies are supposed to be the true story of Catholic exorcisms performed by the Warrens, so it makes sense that they have a lore accurate ending. But yeah, in my opinion, I liked it. But while the nun works well in this movie, she reappears in Annabelle Creation, The Nun, and The Nun 2. Now, when I was watching The Nun 2 specifically in theaters, it really hit me that this demon was not scary anymore, like, at all. And I couldn't help but start thinking back to when I was younger watching Pokemon, seeing Team Rocket come down to steal Pikachu, only to get blasted away every single episode, every time they appear on screen. And this is going to shock you, but the nun is defeated for a 4th time in The Nun 2. I was literally trying not to laugh at the supposedly superhuman being who is thousands of years old go 0-4. And this is really the case for any of the villains in the Conjuring universe, whether it's a witch, demon, ghost, or whatever. We always know at this point that they're going to be defeated no matter what. That all of the super scary supernatural powers where they can, like, demolish houses and levitate people and stuff is just, like, gonna be completely ended by someone saying their name or having, like, enough faith or, like, something. But Team Rocket Syndrome is a great way in general to gauge if a franchise still has any gas in the tank, because if I can go into a movie and already know how and why the villain is going to lose before I even see it, it loses most of its scare factor. Because every time whatever the new entity in the new Conjuring movie pops on screen, it's just going to be in the back of my mind that, okay, Ed and Lorraine Warren are going to say its name, they're going to, like, throw a special cross at it, and just before anybody gets hurt, movie over, drive off into the sunset. Now, I'll always say that fear of the unknown is the best device to create any kind of scare in an audience. It's why you'll often see examples of short movies or stories with no real ending that generate these wild cult followings that really, like, overtake full-length stories and movies that have billions, or not billions, but millions and millions of dollars put into them. And that's the reason The Conjuring 1, Conjuring 2, and Annabelle work specifically so well. During the original trilogy for these movies, the antagonist felt very mysterious and almost unbeatable. In the end of the movies, the threats are always defeated by the Warrens, but it didn't feel as cheap as it has in the last few. It was believable that they could really lose. like, yeah, they defeated this demonic entity or whatever, but we don't really get the mechanisms behind why they're there, how they show up, or what exactly they want. And only once you get to movie 4 through 9, the magic kind of disappears, and you're like, it doesn't really matter where these things come from or like why they do anything, because all the Warrens have to do is like whatever they do, and the villain's going to be defeated instantly, basically, with at most they like throw some people around and like nothing happens. But this really leads us into chapter 3. So, with the insane success of the MCU, a lot of other movies have tried to use the same formula, hoping to generate the insane amount of money and fan base that these ones did, because they kind of show that you can put out a movie that's really mid and not that good, and people will still like dump their life savings to go see it and buy merch for it. Like, a good example of that is Godzilla and King Kong in the Monsterverse. It works really well here. I mean, that's been going for, 10 years now, and it's not really slowing down. You know, everybody wants to go see the new movies. They're pretty enjoyable. And the issue with the Conjuring movies is that they had the same goal, and it's really the people who run Ed and Lorraine's leftover museums or attractions and the church that really push for these movies to be made this way. See, they are horror movies, but the main message and driving factor to them being created in the first place was, at their core, they're a superhero movie where the two most famous paranormal investigator Catholic exorcists of all time fight and win against every single kind of threat that appears in Christianity. So, in real life, the Warrens have a lot of controversy surrounding them, to the point where you can't even bring up their names without like a horde of people saying they're like the worst people that have ever lived. So they're very controversial figures, which I guess, I mean, it makes sense if you read up on them. But in the movies, they seem like the ideal versions of not only good Christians, but people in general, basically like a superhero. I mean, all they really do is travel around the world fighting evil, and anytime they run into anyone, they just solve all of their problems and like fix them. For an example, like The Conjuring 2, the whole movie is this family being terrorized by a literal like demonic entity, and the Warrens show up and they live in with them, and it's a single mom with like a lot of kids, and Ed basically becomes the perfect father figure and like plays his guitar and sings for them and like brings the family together at dinners and shit. And like Lorraine Warren, while this is going on, just smiling in the background and using her like psychic superpowers to identify the demon. Now, I'm not surprised that this is the purpose behind these movies, just because like the real life stories of the Warrens, and like obviously the church wants to be seen in a good light because they've gotten, you know, negative press, I suppose, around the time these movies started. But really, like, you're not even really supposed to be afraid of the demonic force by the end of these movies. You're really just supposed to be rooting for the Warrens to just like take down another one. I mean, like, watching the latest movie, when they appear on screen, I felt like they even did the MCU pause where like people were supposed to clap when they showed up, as if like Captain America and Black Widow just like popped up in the middle of a fight or something. It's not like they're still enjoyable in that way, right? If what you're going for and you want to see is like two demon fighting non-priest kind of priests like fight these crazy looking monsters. But if you're going for like a horrifying, like terrifying experience of a movie, this is just not it. I mean, like this new one, I promise you, if you watch it with this in the back of your mind, you are not going to be scared of whatever pops on screen outside maybe the opening, and you're going to realize it's just like another insert nameless non-rememberable MCU villain that's just a plot device to get fought. But yeah, in conclusion, these are really the three main points I have that have been on my mind lately when I've been seeing this new Conjuring movie get brought up. It's really kind of that the movies have degraded a little bit over time, just because they haven't done anything new. And really, because of the true story and being tied into the Warrens like that, I don't think they could ever do anything new. And with this 10th installment coming up, I'm still going to watch it. I mean, the channel is Fireside Horror. Of course, I'm going to watch one of the most popular horror series of all time. And I'm still probably going to enjoy it. I just don't think there's going to be a single point where I'll be scared by it. So when it does release, I'm either going to make another video being like, I told you so. Or hopefully everything I've said is completely wrong and I won't even be able to sleep that night. But as always, thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.